Hello and welcome to something relatively different. I think I did mention
Monolith?
even on the but it's not Monolith software, it's a different Monolith. If I recall correctly, these guys were the ones who developed
Oh, I get that tale, but still.
Oh yeah. This is Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor, released in 2014 for the PS4, Xbox One, and also for PS3 and Xbox 360, but don't play those versions, they kinda suck.
The gods have forsaken me?
Kinda. We will see that our protagonist actually has quite the tragic backstory himself, and I will have to talk also about it.
Just get a look at that hairdo. That hairdo screams.
And
Well,
so
the
this
combination of hairdo and goatee and beard is essentially your generic Xbox protagonist from the mid 2000 onward.
death would be his escape from madness.
Well, unfortunately, not even that, as we will soon see. But again, one thing at a time. This actually was a project that was actually a long time coming for many specific years. The game even got in trouble a bit because apparently Ubisoft sued Warner Bros. Because they believed some animations were actually stolen from Assassin's Creed. I don't even know how that ended up. I'll probably try to check in between parts.
You know, this is kind of rich, given how Ubisoft would later get in trouble for actually stealing assets for one of their demos.
Alright, let's begin. Unfortunately, being a game from 2014, not everything is subtitled, and the subs, as you can see, are relatively tiny. So, when are we? Technically speaking, this is taking place between the events of The Hobbit and the one of the Lord of the Rings, those 60 years gap that happens between that. However, because some events are deliberately anachronistic, they don't really fit, developers made it clear that this is supposedly basically an alternate continuity in order to fit those better, just to give them a bit more freedom of creativity.
Yeah, I was going to say, this doesn't sound like Kate Blanchett.
But it's Jennifer Hale as Galadriel. But some things do still actually are keen, like in this case, Gondor, there was a time when Sauron was actually dead between the second and the third age, where Gondor had reclaimed possession of the territories of Mordor and and had actually built fortifications there. One such thing was the Black Gate. And our protagonist here, Talion, voiced by Troy Baker, was actually a guard standing there.
He looks like Robert Carlyle.
Kind of.
So, in order to make the tutorial actually functioning, we essentially start in a slight medias res. Don't worry, Joel, we'll catch up in like 10 minutes or something. With Talion already dead and actually having to understand how it did happen.
Hey, dude, there's your own dead body.
Actually, that's not him. That's his son, and he takes the broken sword that he had with him. Again, more of that later.
So in this game, we have Americans putting on British accents.
Yeah. So, our training for combat is Talion sparring with his son.
Well, so
Honestly,
far,
the
Jennifer Hale has a
wrestling-
decent British accent.
Well, remember, Jennifer Hale recently voiced Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3, so she has experience with this, so...
Alright, so guys, have any of you played the Batman Arkham games?
Yep.
It's the same thing, literally.
Well, that's fine by me.
Counter with base attack with square, counter with triangle. Later on, not now, obviously for the tutorial. Later on, you can also have the finishers by combining the button presses like triangle and circle for circle. It's basically the exact same even button combination, even attachment to like say the 8 combo that later becomes 5. Again, you can tell that they borrow a lot from that. The
I'm not
sequel
too
will actually try to
surprised.
detach, but let me tell you, it manages to work out, especially because for the gameplay system that it actually, that he has, it's much more different from what he wants to do compared to Batman, and thus this type of gameplay had to be still refined in some kind of way, so it has its own personal flavor.
How sad is
I'm not
it?
too surprised they took cues from the Arkham games because a lot, and I mean
a lot.
a lot of games.
Even the Mad Max
games.
games actually did that.
Yeah, that's not really
But
surprising
you know
at all.
what, to be fair, it was a formula that worked, and hey, if they could adapt it well without just being a 2-bit copy, I was fine with it.
Also, Dave, you will be able to hear more way later or in the next part, I forgot precisely when, but This actually taking cues from stuff like Warhammer 40k, as the actual also Mordor speak, voiced by American people, speak in a very, very thick Cockney accent.
Oh boy.
The idea behind it, because at the base of everything, is that originally when the people who made Warhammer 40k actually applied that to their orcs, they specifically mentioned they actually wanted to avoid racial stereotypes and instead tried to depict them as, quote-unquote, since it's a British company, tried to depict them as, quote-unquote, typical football hooligans.
Oh, so technically that was on the British company's decision in the first place.
I don't know if they
to be,
were really the first to do that, but to go on with.
To be fair, the orcs did have the Cockney accents in the movies. So.
Yeah, but you remember, I'm talking when 40k applied that. That was in the end of the 80s, early 90s stops. So it was. I don't know if they were really the first who did that, but it basically was a sort of a trendsetter. Anyway,
Orcs
again,
having Cockney accents seems to have been a thing that persisted even to modern days in a lot of media.
It's very, even in the video games, or actually other video games. But yeah, that's how Talion remembers his son, which also has to. We will get to his presence in a We'll actually get to this presence in a second. Now Talion has to remember a bit more. His wife.
Oh, great.
I smell a revenge story.
Technically, yes, but again, I will have to explain more in a second when you have properly the context.
Oh no! This guy who we've barely known has had his wife killed. Who we
again, Dweebs, I will explain in a second. Don't worry.
To be fair, these kinds of stories that literally open up with the tragedy can work because usually the idea
Fun
is
fact,
that we'll
Jova, because you're probably hearing it, the composer, I forgot to expect his name, the composer is the same one of the Bioshock series. If anything, this was his work immediately after Bioshock Infinite.
Wow.
Gary
good for
Simon,
him. I mean,
I think.
You know, good for him.
So yeah,
I mean, going
this
from
is actually
Bioshock...
cute. In order to teach you stealth mechanic, Talion has to make a surprise for his wife. I actually really like this.
Yeah, that's fun.
That is cute.
Yeah, Gary Simon.
And of course,
Another one. While in stealth, press square to kiss your wife. Just make sure it's your wife when you use this mechanic.
Story, we also have singing, of course.
And yes, you can actually listen to the full song if you wish.
Yoink.
Happy anniversary, my love.
Oh, it was their anniversary too. I sure hope nothing bad happens today.
If you're wondering why his entire family is on the Black Gate, if you don't remember, Gondor has a kind of fucking weird system where they actually exiled a lot of people and condemned them as ranger, and some of them actually had to work on this place.
I guess the idea was, hey, your family is here, so that could keep up morale rather than being separated from
The thing is that we only see Talion having it, and unfortunately there's a point. We don't spend almost any time with Talion and his family, just this very beginning, before they're basically freezed, as you will see in a second.
That is a bit disappointing, but given how expansive his...
If you will see in a second, but while I understand the goals that they wanted to build this revenge story, and it will be connected to a character that Talion meets also in a second, it really feels extremely rushed and kind of cheap.
It kind of reminds me of the dad in Rise Son of Rome.
It reminds me of something else also, but the Gondwaves.
Okay, in fact, is this gonna be even faster than when this kind of thing happened, except with a daughter in the Last of Us? Because that'll be impressive.
Yes.
You know, I honestly thought you were going to bring up
Adam. These are antagonists. If you forgot, at the end of the Hobbit, the White Council had managed to exonerate Sauron, so at this point the big ass is not really, in condition to return. But he has a bunch of lieutenants that can work on him, in this case, the Dark Numenorians.
You're gonna say, Jada?
For a moment I thought you were going to bring up Battlefield Earth, which literally starts with the death of Johnny Goodboy's father's death.
Well, the bigger problem with that bit was that he had his burial for like 3 seconds and he cut away from it.
Yeah. That
yes,
literally had
also,
nothing to do with the rest
this
of
game,
the
if I
movie.
recall correctly, this game is actually R-rated, although not, we don't really swear much, actually, it's more option for the violence.
Yeah, probably.
And we have this guy, the Black Hand of Sauron, voiced by Nolan North, and we need to actually see him very relatively painfully executing the entire family on the spot.
Okay,
here.
Owen North versus Troy Baker.
Okay, embrace the group. If you're ever involved in any movies you make of the Lord of the Rings since you bought out the Tolkien stuff, I've forgotten the name, Middle Earth Productions, whatever it's called, make a gritty Lord of the Rings film reboot.
Huh.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I know.
Like I said, this feels very
Yeah,
cheap.
it
Like,
does.
And look, and again, I understand what they want to do, but it's just they really needed more time to actually develop properly cook and
I feel like it's even that it needs a lot of time, because remember, the Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge movie did a good job in a short amount of time in making Satoshi's death feel earned, you know, like, because the whole point of Scorpion is that his family gets killed right in front of him by Sub-Zero. Quan Chi in disguise, but yeah, we don't.
Yeah. Now, hold on, Jova. Now we can talk about this later. Now we're caught up, so don't worry, Jova. That means was just fair. And Talion is about to meet this special guy, an elf wraith. We will learn his identity later. Voiced with a Scottish accent by Alistair Duncan. Which at this point he was not yet Mimir, but he had been Senator Armstrong a year
What has
before.
happened to me?
Perfect.
You are banished from death. Cast adrift between the worlds of light
Yep.
and dark.
Really?
Because he was victim of a curse, Talion cannot die and is bound to this elf wraith for some reason.
Well, Alistair Duncan is actually from
Scotland.
Edinburgh.
Break this curse. We find the one who cast it.
So that's essentially our plot. Talion is stuck in Mordor with this ghost, and he has to find information about the Black Hand in order to act his revenge.
Sounds fun.
So wait, Alistair Duncan is actually British. Huh? After the ever so American performance he put on in Metal Gear
title drop.
Rising: Revengeance.
This looks familiar.
Talion killed a nobleman, Yorith. His life now belongs to Gondor.
Father, if you turn my love in, I shall swear I killed Lord Asgon when he attacked me. We shall both sacrifice our...
For now, again, the Wraith actually has a memory of this particular tower, and using his ghost hammer, we can reforge it in order to not take control, but have a better understanding of the area. These are essentially our Ubisoft Tower equivalent, which essentially unlocks the markers for collectibles and other stuff. Again, these opts for the open world approach, although being in Resident 2014, it's relatively limited, as you will see. We only had 2 big areas. This one and one we will see much later.
I was about to ask, actually, if this whole game just takes place in Gondor.
We missed one of you at Narcos, eh? An easy mistake to fix.
Oh, this is the Lord of the Rings game, right? Yeah.
Alright.
Well, to be fair, this is meant to be a spin-off that doesn't involve the main cast anyway.
Yeah. Now there you go. You also have a bow and arrow, and you have a meter for a slowdown time, which you can form headshots as well.
I'm not talking about characters. I'm talking about style and tone, because so far this just looks like any other kind of medieval style game. To be honest, if it weren't for the orcs, I wouldn't have known this was meant to be a Middle Earth thing.
Honestly,
I
that's
mentioned already a couple of elements, Dweebs.
Go back to him.
Yeah, this Wraith can give Talion a bit of a special power. Alright, with this teaches another mechanic. We can grab enemies like this, and with the soaring position of the hand, we can actually mark them. For the time being, it just has the effect of potentially interrogate people.
God, if only Phoenix Wright's interrogations were like this.
Damn.
You get the case solved in a day.
A slave I had.
Will the wonders be more Apollo's thing, though?
I don't know.
I sold him for a keg of grog to Gimu the slaver.
And this teaches another mechanic. Interrogating specific cores can let us reveal one of the selling points of the game. The captains generated via the Nemesis system. While for the time being it's not particularly, relevant, because for some story elements, like in this case, some of these characters are pre-made. The selling point of the game is that for most of the other captains, you will be able to see through the series that there are a lot to choose from. The game calculates body type, voice, personality, and a set of weaknesses and resistances to apply in I have no idea with what kind of computation to apply to create a character like this out of nowhere, which function in a sort of an autonomous way in function to their personality. For example, one would be called the Brewer and would be able to be attached to, say, the deposits of grog, for example, but more on that in a second. For the time being, we have to trade this guy to track this guy who's called the Slaver.
Trust has nothing to do with it. His thoughts.
And yeah, because we literally forced the truth out of York, we can actually trust what the words say.
Wow.
And that is essentially our premise. Right now we have to go technically there. The yellow missions are the one story-based. The red icon instead are attached to the captains, while the white one are the side missions and collectibles. I will showcase only a few of them, the ones that are relevant, because in those cases the characters do have some, quips and commentaries about it, so it will actually spice a bit of a flavor. In true open world fashion, you have potentially a couple of story missions that you can tackle in the order that you want, but eventually they coalesce towards one single goal.
So, Tio, since this is an open world game, I might as well ask, how would you say is overall the balance between gameplay versus story?
I mean, pretty much the usual that you find these kind of open world games. If you really want to rush through the story, you actually can. You can complete it in 4 or 5 hours if you want. But if you want to take time to develop also the side stuff and enjoy fully the Nemesis system, that can extend the lifetime of a game as much as you want.
So in regards to the captains, are the captains that are generated, different for each playthrough? And
oh, absolutely. Not just playthrough, Joe, but again, like I said, I have no idea how this system works, because I'm not a programmer and everything, but again, it randomly generates an entire orc with a specifically set of, appearance, personality, and everything, and it manages to work out, no buggy and everything. And it gets even better in the sequel in how it's developed and how the orcs actually behave. It helps create a type of personality to the game without having to rely on scripted events, because at any point, potentially, maybe one of his captains can be actually present in a mission that you're doing, but it's not even supposed to be a part of, and he's just present and ambushes you, and now you have actually a boss fight that you have to contend with, you weren't even expecting, and you have to rely fully on your gameplay skills to actually deal with that, while the story elements is provided by the captain's voice. I have no idea how many voice lines are recorded actually for this game in sequel, but they have to be at the very least on the thousands, because there are such different combinations given by a set of different voice actors like Donna North, Sam Riegel, Travis Willingham, and such, that voices the orcs, which have to actually, fit the personality, have specific quips for specific situation, specifically tied to one of the personalities that are given. So I can imagine it's quite a lot that they had to record in the booth.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that this game had a lot of Lord of the Rings money backing it to allow for such customization.
Well, yes and no. I think it did, But I think it was also a case where they were not allowed to use a lot particular terms, because for some elements, for example, like say the wargs or the trolls, they are only mentioned sporadically, but they don't appear. Instead, have a sort of a equivalent type of monster on that. It's a bit weird, but I don't know exactly what was the logistics behind it. Because again, it's not like they cannot actually mention some of these names.
Mordor takes Eldar shape.
Anyway, going back to the talk about the mother and son here, I'll put it like this. I'm kind of interested that the game hasn't even really suggested that the story is about vengeance, because the guy does not seem concerned about that, which makes me wonder...
Well, that's literally his goal, finding the person who killed his son. Anyway, let me explain also this a bit. One of the collectors is Ithildin. If you forgot, this is actually the substance that reflects the sun and the moonlight that compose stuff like the doors of the Mines of Moria. Essentially, it's another collectible, and once you collect all, you actually get a mural. Another thing that you need to do is actually to harvest weed, literally, that actually grows still into Mordor in order to hone the ranger skills of Talion. And again, those are side stuff. Continue, Drova.
Okay, regardless of how into revenge he is, again, his mannerisms don't suggest he's that concerned about it. Granted, it's just the start of the game.
Well, Talion has just discovered that he's dead, and now he's basically imbued with an elf ghost. So I can understand if it's a bit, just traumatized a bit, but you will see soon enough, if you pay attention also to the dialogue, that he's hell-bent on revenge, just not in a Kratos kind of way. He's not actually screaming at every 2 seconds, but he still wants to get shit done.
Also, I noticed the map suggests you've already killed a spider. Haven't noticed us come across any yet.
I did it off screen. Again, a lot of stuff I do it off screen that is not really super necessary. But anyway, let me give you a demonstration by challenging one of these randomly made captain. There you go. Similar in the Battle in Arkham games, your enemies do have a meter of awareness that, depending on your stealth condition or not, can actually lead to you being spotted. Compared to those, of course, stealth is a bit of a more proper mechanic. You even can hide in tall grass, kind of like in Assassin's Creed. But see,
Boop.
Surprise!
Never! You faggot!
Uh,
I'm gonna kill you. Why delay the inevitable?
Yeah, it sounds pretty close to how they sound in the films.
like I said, it's a tradition that apparently has been going on at least since the 80s. But go on, Drova, sorry.
Part of me wonders if the same effect of a guy going for revenge could have been done without just bridging the mother and son.
Yes,
like, have it be that he gets
one of my
revenge for the
arguments.
community.
Talion, if you forgot, was part of the group of people that actually was guarding the Black Gate. And I'm thinking, why couldn't the revenge be about his comrades instead of his family? And the cynical part of me thinks we're gonna need to sell this to the American audience, so the whole thing about slaughter family actually sells more.
I mean, the thing is, even that doesn't work because the American audience have plenty of stories about
Well,
guys who want to get revenge
what I'm
for their
telling you, like,
regiments or
the
troops.
way executives tend to think about
Yeah.
that, in Suits, the execution is
See, when
another,
you have to
entirely.
you have to understand, Joe, that most of these people are old farts who are completely out of touch with reality.
And only actually think about charts and focus groups. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, interrogate.
No matter how much
similar,
those don't
again,
actually work.
also similar to the Arkham games. If you can interrogate an enemy that glows green, yes, you can actually discover, in this case, not necessarily secret, but instead gaining intel about the captains. You can discover how they look like, and instead actually also about their weaknesses and their strengths. So in this case, for example, this captain has a can be more damaged by range attacks or the combat features, but instead, is more immune to potentially being grappled until he's actually weakened. So again, knowing the information about the captain is vital in actually defeating them. And again, it gives a sense of personality to each of the actual encounter that you get with them. And like I said, they even can get you by surprise if you're not careful enough. So the game has this kind of, rubber banding where Talion is already powerful on his own and can get even more powerful thanks to this ability skill tree. But the enemies are actually balanced to also potentially, get also powerful on their own and potentially give you a more challenge. And warning, if they actually manage to kill you, which you cannot die because of your curse, they will become more powerful. So if you actually screw up too many times, you can actually create a personal nemesis on your own, hence the name of the title, that can actually be a pain in the ass to defeat if you don't actually perform well enough. Angry Joe learned this the hard way, by the way.
Interesting. So the game punishes you with death by, well, of course, you
By
don't
actually
stay
making
dead.
the one who kill you. These actually, in turn, you can also manipulate this system in your favor if you want. Because any enemy that can kill you gets promoted because, they achieved actually a feat. So even if a random mook who's not a captain actually managed to kill you, they will actually become promoted, and if you want, you can actually manipulate things in your favor by having like a random mook kill you, and then moving them up the ranks of the orcs, because maybe you want to actually put them in a position of power before actually striking them. Maybe you want a captain with a specific weakness in a specific point. So essentially, the world is literally your oyster to play with this system, but the system can actually punish you if you actually are not careful enough. It's this kind of beautiful balance. As I mentioned also in the past, I do believe Ghost of Tsushima would have benefited greatly for a system similar to this, because picture it, Jin having to deal with the Mongolian captains in a way sort of similar to this, giving personality and circumventing also potentially a limited enemy type, which this game actually does have. This game doesn't have too many enemies different, they're just orcs with different weapons, like a one-handed weapon, spear and a shield combo, and two sets of ranged weapons when you get down to it. But because of the different appearances and personalities of the captains, you don't really get to see this kind of stuff. So other games I think would benefit that. Shame that Warner Bros. And these developers, Monolith, decided to be a bit extra greedy and said that if you want to, they actually have to pay royalties to them. So I get the idea, we're not gonna see that much outside of them, because if you forgot, these are the same developers who are now developing the Wonder Woman solo video game, which is actually using this also system. They confirmed this Nemesis system on its own. So I'm actually really curious to see how that gets applied to criminals and super criminals for a Wonder Woman game.
Very much so. But yeah, no, I get the feeling that it sounds like, all the war mechanics were definitely the main focus of this game. Not to say that, the main campaign won't be just fine, but,
no, the story on paper is just okay. I don't think it's terrible. I don't think it's super Oscar-worthy, but I think it works just fine. Nothing really too much about it.
It's the typical kind of process with an open world game. You come for the story, you stay for the uber game mechanics that they make for the open
again, I
world
argue
game
because
play.
of the Nemesis system, the Nemesis system, like I said, manages to create also this sort of different balance compared to most of the other, open world game, where you do actually a blend of the story in micro format and gameplay, but it's completely gameplay driven. It's a void of scripted sequences, and instead, you can actually perform properly depending on what the game does. Anyway, let me explain this. You will actually also find artifacts, and I will actually showcase all of them in order, which represents utensils and other stuff that were tied to either the orcs or the human slaves that they actually possess. In this case, a lockpick. For the artifacts that we will come after, I will actually properly read the descriptions. But again, for the time being, we could just move forward to this. And if you rotate it in a second, you actually get to hear a memory attached to that. Most of these memories are actually performed by voice actors like Travis Willingham and Yuri Lowenthal, but they work fine.
Interesting. Well, I will say this. They definitely did pretty well with the production values. Again, like even giving pretty much each item a literal voice line of its own that's a nice detail.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, it does the same problem that we mentioned a couple of times, where these are sort of a bit of an equivalent to audio logs, but you cannot actually listen to them while walking on your own, and you have to pause, get in the menu, and get properly to them. But they're short and sweet enough, so you don't waste too much time, in my opinion.
Also, they feel like they definitely have a purpose because, hey, that's one of our abilities, so yeah.
And like I said, both Talion and the Wraith will actually give a comment after you collect them. Unfortunately, it's also a thing that if you actually, properly collect them, but instead you revisit them, Talion will not comment afterward, after you collect them. So it's a thing of you get them on the moment you hear what they have to say. But again, that's literally just the beginning. Tune in instead next time, where we have two actually leads to where to go through. Either find the slave that actually has escaped and managed to confront the Black Hand, or instead interrogate one of the specific orcs that have actually been kept prisoner. See ya.
See you then.